Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at Venture number 5, a 1976 comic book that it was kind of listed as a fanzine. The first 4 issues of Venture were black and white. Definitely you'd probably classify them as a fanzine, but this looks just like any ground level comic from 1976. There's really no difference between this and Star Reach, or other than size, than ElfQuest or something. But it's one of the first comics I ever bought from Bud Plant. I think maybe I bought a couple issues of Star Reach before this, or I maybe bought them in a store. But I saw this and I bought it. I was probably like 11. I think it was soon after it came out. And this comic fascinated me. And not just because of this beautiful Neal Adams cover and the way he draws this woman. This is like prime era Neal Adams. Mid-70s, Neal Adams was just doing amazing stuff, doing those portfolios he was putting out of the Tarzan covers. Just great stuff. And but I must have read this comic over and over all through my childhood. I probably read it 100 times because it fascinated me. I was like, wow, it's not a Marvel or DC comic. It's in black and white. And yet it has this good art and all these great artists who don't even work in Marvel and DC anymore. At this point, Neal Adams was barely doing shit for Marvel and DC. And so this is very intriguing to me, and I've kept it all these years. And once again, thank you, Bud Plant. I owe you many thanks over the decades for all the great things you introduced into my life, which I never would have seen in upstate New York. We start off with an inside front cover by Gary Winnick. And Gary Winnick is the co-editor of this, along with Frank Cirocco. You might know Frank Cirocco from Alien Legion. That was probably his most popular comic. But for the most part, these guys spent all of their adult careers in animation. Gary Winnick was one of the first, I believe the first animator hired by LucasArts when they started their video game division in the early 80s. So there's not much comic work from Gary Winnick. Apparently he did a graphic novel in 2014 though. So it seems like he always had a love for comics. Every decade he'd do some little comic here and there. But I'm sure getting rich from video games was much more enticing, and he never really came back to comics for that long. He's definitely a fan artist, you know. He's not bad though. It seems like he has the foundations of drawing down. We have the table of contents here, and look at this beautiful Jeff Jones illustration. So it says Jones 1969, and inks though by Tony Salmons in 1975. So I suspect this was some fan sketch that one of these guys got at a convention. And when they put this out, they were like, hey, we'll get our buddy Tony Salmons to ink it, and we'll put it in our comic. And I'm sorry, I should have said Jeffrey Catherine Jones. She changed her name. And let's continue. So this first story is called The Triad. And it's, I believe, we'll get to the credits in a second. But the important thing is the pencils in this are by Frank Cirocco. And this is years before he ever did anything for, Alien Legion. I think he might have had something in Epic Illustrated. I can't even remember. But man, this guy, he's probably in college or just out of college. He's already got some serious chops. He's already better than a lot of the guys working at Marvel and DC at the time. So it's kind of amazing that he didn't, go up to Marvel and DC offices and say, hey, guys, here I am. They probably would have hired him. So this story, it's a kind of sci-fi story. We see a man and a woman, and they're sneaking into this temple so they can steal this orb, this mystical orb of incredible power. As they leave the place, this old man, he asks for some money. He's a beggar. And this guy, we realize, is kind of a jerk, and he clouts him on the head because he won't get out of the way. And here's the title page. So it says Text Horizon Zero Graphiques, or graphics. They spell it like French, or in the French way. And I have a feeling that's probably just Frank Cirocco and Gary Winnick. And pencils by Cirocco, inks by Steve Lealoha and Cirocco, who I'm pretty sure was already working at Marvel at the time, and lettering by Tom Warzachowski. So these guys had some, they were definitely trying to make a high quality product. I imagine they didn't have a lot of money, but it's kind of great, amazing that they got like the best letterer in comics to do their little, ground level comic. So apparently these two, they bury this mystical orb somewhere, and they switch it with a counterfeit orb. They have some plan there. They're scheming. Look at this guy. Just really nice work by Cirocco. Look at this tree. He really seems to have his shit down. Also, I noticed all the artists in this comic, I think these guys were like graphic design students at college, because they use every manner of zip-a-tone and crazy effects. It seems like they had access to really good artist tools, Like they definitely know the basics. So they book passage on this ship, and there's this one guy in the ship who is kind of giving them the stink eye, or at least he's noticing them. He's watching them very intently. The guy's name is, I'm going to pronounce it Ron, because it would be silly calling him Ron. And the woman's name is Jana. Ron and Jana. They disembark from the ship, and they don't realize it, but that guy who was watching them, he follows them. So many of these panels, it's like so much better than any 1976 Marvel or DC comic. It's kind of amazing that he was just like content doing this. They traipse through this jungle, and then they find a starship, and its sole operator, this robot. They climb onto the ship, and without realizing it, that guy following them, he's a native of the planet Ors. That's where they're at. So this Orsian sneaks onto the ship behind him. The thing takes off into space, and Roan and Jana turn into their normal attire. They were undercover, pretending to be Orsians, kind of like a barbarian level planet, like a Conan planet. And so I guess they're meeting this robot. They've had a rendezvous for this exchange. They're like, okay, we got the orb. They're making some kind of transaction. It turns out the thing is, Roan and Jana, they want all the orbs. And they know that bringing this orb, they're pretty sure the other two orbs are on this starship. The robot guy says, oh yeah, I'll get your reward. And he thinks to himself, the reward shall be death. This writing is pretty melodramatic. It's not very good. It's kind of like, it sounds like a literate 19-year-old would write. So then, when the robot goes away, the Orsian comes out of hiding. He grabs Jana, holds her at a knife point, and this Orsian says, give me the jewel, the orb, and we'll return to the city. And Ron says, you fool, don't you know where the hell you are? Take a look outside. He looks outside the window. Because he's from a planet with no technology, so he drops Jana. He's freaked out. He's like, what the? I don't understand. So then he runs. He panics and says, I gotta get out of here. And so it turns out that counterfeit orb they gave this robot guy, it's a bomb, basically, a low-level bomb. And it blows up the robot. As the Orsian hears the explosion and checks it out, and he finds one of the orbs. The orb of reason. He tucks it under his arm and tries to find an exit. And unfortunately, he does find an exit right into the cold darkness of space. Man, so much zipatone and textures. Craft tin or whatever it's called. He really goes to town on this stuff. So Roan and John have no idea what's happening. That this guy took the orb. So when they show up, they're like, there's only 2 orbs. What the hell? Little do they know that right outside the ship is floating in space with the frozen remains of that Orzian. And so they're frantically searching for the other orb that they need. And they're so intent on finding it that they don't realize that the ship is slowly heading towards this moon surface. And he even uses some photo collage business here. And they crash land on the planet. Actually, I think this is Ors. I'm sorry. It's not a moon. It looks like a moon, though, with all the craters. And, of course, the ship crashes and they all die. And it says, for although they possessed the orb of genius, all the power contained was ultimately useless to a ship of fools. That's the kind of writing we get here. There's an epilogue. The early morning sun shines down the next day, and that old beggar man, he notices a reflection, and he goes to check it out, and he finds the orb of genius. His back straightens up, his wrinkles on his face begin to fade, and then the last panel says this poor beggar had no way of realizing that he would soon become a king. This is kind of, okay, great. But man, that's some really good art. Really good stuff. Next we have War Affair. This is written by some guy named Eric Toy, with an E at the end. And it's art by Brent Anderson, another future professional who'd draw Khazar, draw hundreds of things. X-Men, well, you know, all through the late 70s, 80s, 90s. And this is probably one of his first stories ever printed. And he's pretty darn good as, you know, some young artist. We see these 3 kind of like mercenary soldiers. They've been hired by these aliens to basically, I guess, just to fight these other aliens. To be mercenaries in their war. Their main job is that they got to shoot down one of these hoverbirds, as they call them, some flying craft. The orders seem weird. One of the guys is like, we're like the best mercs in the galaxy. Why just shooting down one hovercraft? This is okay, fine, but it's kind of weird, kind of a waste of our talents. And one of them mentions how that nobody's ever seen these guys. They've seen their ships, but nobody's ever seen these aliens, what they look like. So their radar catches one of these crafts, and they speed off in their crazy, I don't know, I guess it's kind of a Jeep, because it's got a mounted gun on it, but it's some crazy car. And they see the hovercraft, and we get to see what the alien looks like in the hovercraft, and they start shooting at it. They cripple the ship, and the ship goes down like a mile away. So they're like, okay, we still got to finish the job. We won't get paid unless we make sure. And so they find the craft, and the pilot is still alive, but he's pretty injured. He's just squealing. He's just screaming in pain. It looks like his innards have been torn out from him. So they call the base commander, and they say, we don't know what to do in this situation. What do we do? So this guy comes out, and he's just like, what the hell is that racket? And they're like, it's the alien, sir. It's wounded. We didn't know the exact procedure. He says, exact procedure? He just pulls out his gun and obliterates the dying alien. Helps him on his way. And then one of the guys just says, "What a hell of a way to make a living." So not much of a story, but really interesting to see Brent Anderson in 1976, way before. In fact, I don't think he even worked for Marvel until like 1980, around then. So I don't know what he was doing in those 4 years. Maybe just getting better. But it seems like he's Marvel worthy here. He's definitely better than some of the guys drawing at the time. I'd rather look at this than Ron Wilson's art, you know. Next we have a Gary Winnick's contribution, and it's called Rogue World. We have a little prologue here. Look at all this crazy effects going on here. It's like every panel is just like zip-a-tone and craft-tin and stuff. I think I'm using craft-tin wrong. I think that's just the shading thing, but you know what I'm talking about. Those things you could rub off to make patterns. So we see these two aliens that are almost like, they seem like they're cosmic gods or something. They're like, we have been captured by Travian millions of years ago, but we need this one human is on their way here. They somehow know this, and they will free us, and then we will conquer the universe, and we will be all powerful again. So now that's the end of the prologue. So now we see this starship. Only 2 passengers. This guy Dalen, an ambassador from some planet, alien planet, and Kyra, the daughter of a wealthy merchant. So this Rogue's World, it's story and pencils by Gary Winnick. Story and inks by Brent Anderson. Lettering by Tom Orzechowski. So I guess Gary Winnick and Brent Anderson co-wrote this story. And I have a feeling by that Gary Winnick's art in that inside front cover, Brent Anderson's adding a lot in the inks here. Because there's just a lot of rendering, you know, from the Neil Adams 70s school, where like half the artists, especially in fanzines, were trying to draw just like Neil Adams. So these pirates show up. They cripple the ship and they board. There's 3 of them. They shoot Darren. Maybe that sounds silly now. Oh, sorry, Dalen. And they wound him. And then this their leader, Skull, Skul, he grabs her and he violates her sexually. And then he just leaves her. Leaves both of them. And the pirates leave. So she drags Dalen to this shuttlecraft, because they know that the ship is done for, and they head out. Their fuel and provisions are running low, so but luckily they find this starship, which actually has a bit of oh my god, I can't say that word, habitable life support system within. So they board it. They get on. There's this dead alien in there they find. So who knows how long this spaceship has been floating around space. They also find this strange crystalline pyramid thing. And Dalen realizes, there's something about this technology seems familiar. I think I can pilot this craft. So now it's like half a year later, and Kyra and Dalen find themselves on Rogue World. Now, Rogue World is like a criminal planet. It's where brigands and pirates and all kinds of no-goodniks hang out. You know, it's that kind of planet. And there's no law there. So the past 6 months, they've been roaming around trying to find these 3 pirates who hurt them so much. And as you can see, this is... they must have told Neil Adams or given him a page of the art and Neil Adams drew the cover based on these designs. Maybe this is craft tint, this dark shading, or just tone work. So they see Skull getting drunk, and so Kyra kind of seduces him. She says, "Oh, isn't there something more interesting than drink you had in mind?" And because he's distracted, Dalen conks him on the head. Skull wakes up chained to a wall, and they're torturing him and interrogating him. And they're like, "Where are the other two? Where are those other two pirates?" He says, "Don't hit me again. They're on a mining run in the ruins of the 5th tier," he says. And then he dies. Turns out he had not a cyanide tablet in his mouth, he had a dianide tablet in his mouth, and he chomped down on it. So I guess dianide is twice as bad as cyanide. That's my guess. There's some more of that. I mean, this is by hand, obviously, but Jim Starlin used to love to do this a lot in the 70s. So they go out to the ruins that the guy was talking about. He sees their gear outside a cave here. So they realize they must be in there. They go down to this cave. They see this giant statue of kind of like a space god looking thing, like something Kirby would design. And at the base of the statue, it says Travian, if you remember that name from that prologue. They finally go down this little tunnel, and they come out, and they see the other two pirates, those dastardly bastards. And Dalen fries the guy with his laser pistol, and then he fries the woman too, the woman pirate. I like this just description here. It says, Dalen and Kyra approach the two charred bodies. Smiles of insane satisfaction spread across their faces. And so it seems like these two have definitely changed since their assault. And they're not the same people they were. Dalen looks up and he sees this little triangular-shaped hole in the wall. He puts the crystalline pyramid, which he still has, and it seems to leap right into it to mate with the triangle hole. And then instantly, the energy field and its key both dissolve, and they find themselves in the presence of those two kind of space god creatures from the beginning, from the prologue. At last we have been liberated. The conversion of the galaxy may now proceed uncontested. They say that these two, that Kyra and Dalen, they'll be spared for their services. And they say, besides, the evil of their revenge has already earned them a niche in the new way. So they have changed, you know. This vengeance they've been seeking for so long, they're pretty evil now. They'll fit into this new shitty world, evil world. The evil planet called Rogue World, which very soon become the capital for the new order of things. And that's how it ends. So on the cusp of this horrible new universe where these guys are going to be in control, these evil gods. Look at this beautiful pinup from Frank Cirocco, man. God, he was really good. We have a nice Jeff Jones illustration on the letter page here. There's so many celebrities in the letter page. Kenneth Smith, I guess he was in Adventure number 4. He has a pinup. Frank Thorne, Carl Potts, who we're about to see, who is already working at Continuity Associates, so kind of semi-pro. And Ken Meyer Jr., who was a fan at the time but went on to be a pro in the 80s, doing some really bad painted artwork. Every now and then he could be good, but for the most part, it's pretty bad. And then we have an editorial from the editors saying, first of all, thanks for all the success you guys have given us. Venture's been doing great, but also, this is the last issue of Venture. We want to do other things. So it's kind of sad, because the way this was progressing, who knows how good this shit could have gotten, you know? And then, guys, look at this. Beautiful Alex Niño pin-up here. Only Alex Niño could draw that. This is so great. This is from 72. So I suspect that these guys were fans who went to all the conventions, and that for years they were just like, oh, can we get a sketch from you? And they had a fanzine, so I'm sure they could have said, is it all right if we printed our fanzine? And nobody cared. Fanzines were kind of allowed to print art from professionals. They didn't care. They usually had a print run of like 100. But they probably were holding on to this for years. And then we have a one-pager by Carl Potts, who I imagine was so impressed with venture number 4 that he said, hey, I want to be part of this. Typical bad Carl Potts story. This is like the shit he had in Epic Illustrated, all those crappy stories he did. I mean, the art's pretty okay. It's like Carl Potts can draw. It's very technically skillful. But it's just one of those ironic, weird comics. I do like the kind of breaking the fourth wall meta thing going on, but it's also just dumb. And then we have another beautiful Frank Cirocco pinup. And we have another great Alex Niño drawing as the back cover. Man, look at the crazy colors in this. It's like modern art, like it's really odd, but it totally works. Alex Niño is such a master. I just noticed this today, after all these years, just how, amazingly ornate he draws. Like that pinup earlier, he drew every line on those weird eye creatures. But look at these seagulls. It's just like a whew, with his pen. It's like a quick little flourish. Totally sell as birds. You totally see that as birds. But when you look closely, it's like, wow, so minimal. But Alex Niño at this point had been drawing for decades. He's just totally a master. And then on top of that, he just has this amazing visual imagination and style that is very unique in comics. These 2 covers alone are worth however much you might have to pay for this. I don't know how much. I doubt this is worth much. I think it was like Bud Plant was selling these for years, maybe even in the sales section, because there's just some weird unknown quantity for most people. It was too lame for underground fans, and I guess a little too black and white for mainstream fans. But there you go, guys. Venture number 5, a part of my childhood, and I guess it will continue to be a part of my old age, which is, I guess I'm kind of starting to become part of. I'm 57, so I don't know if that counts as old age. It's pretty old, but I'm not a senior citizen yet. But I'm going to hold on to this for, until I don't hold on to my own life anymore. But hope you guys like looking at it as much as I liked revisiting it. I probably haven't taken this off the shelf since like the 80s. It was really fun to look at it again. So thanks for watching, guys, and I hope to see you next time here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.